She begged the billionaire CEO for child support, but he refused. "Your daughter is dying, and you're worried about stock prices?" Ren Holloway's voice cut through the silence of the marble-clad boardroom like a blade. 20 of the most powerful investors in Silicon Valley turned to stare at the woman who had somehow bypassed millions of dollars in security to storm into their private meeting. Jet Meridian stood frozen at the head of the conference table, his steel-gray eyes locked on the fierce stranger who had just shattered his carefully controlled world. "Security. Her name is Clover," Ren shouted as two guards moved toward her. "She's 7 years old. She has your eyes. And she's going to die because you refuse to acknowledge she exists. I don't know who you are or what game you're playing, but this isn't a game." Tears streamed down Ren's face as she pulled out a small photograph, holding it up for everyone to see. "Look at her. Look at your daughter and tell me you don't see yourself." Jet's face went white as chalk. For just a moment, his composed mask slipped, revealing something raw and vulnerable underneath. Then the walls slammed back into place. "Get her out of here. Now. She has weeks, maybe days. The treatment costs $300,000, and the insurance won't cover experimental procedures. You spend more than that on your car collection. Ma'am, you need to come with us." The security guards reached for Ren's arms. "Sage Wildwood." Ren screamed the name like a weapon. "Does that name mean anything to you? The woman you loved 8 years ago? The woman who died giving birth to your child?" Jet Meridian's empire had been built on control, precision, and the absolute elimination of anything that could threaten his carefully constructed life. But in that moment, as the name of a woman he tried to forget echoed through his boardroom, his world began to crack. Have you ever fought for someone who couldn't fight for themselves? Have you ever stood up to power when everything was stacked against you? This is the story of a social worker who risked everything to save a dying child, and the billionaire who had built walls so high around his heart that he couldn't see the daughter who needed him most. If you believe that every child deserves a chance at life, hit that like button right now and let me know in the comments if you've ever had to fight for what's right against impossible odds. Let me take you back to where this incredible journey began, just 3 weeks earlier. The Oregon Department of Child Services building squatted like a gray monument to bureaucratic despair in downtown Portland. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed with the same weary persistence as the overworked social workers who moved through its maze of cubicles like ghosts carrying other people's pain. Ren Holloway had been one of those ghosts for 6 years, ever since she'd graduated with her master's degree in social work and thrown herself into the thankless job of protecting children who had no one else to protect them. At 28, she carried an old soul in her amber eyes and wore determination like armor against a system that seemed designed to fail the most vulnerable. Her desk was a testament to chaos and compassion. Case files stacked 3 feet high, photos of dozens of children she'd helped over the years, and a coffee-stained mug that read, "World's okayest social worker," that had been a joke gift from her supervisor. But it wasn't really a joke. In a job where okayest often meant the difference between life and death for a child, Ren had never settled for anything less than extraordinary. "Holloway, I've got a new placement for you." Janet Morrison, the department supervisor, appeared at Ren's cubicle with yet another manila folder. Janet had been doing this job for 23 years, and it showed in the lines around her eyes and the slight tremor in her hands from too much coffee and too little sleep. "How bad?" Ren asked, not looking up from the report. She was writing about a teenager who'd finally been reunited with his grandmother after 2 years in the system. 7-year-old girl. Medical needs. Current foster family can't handle the care requirements. That made Ren look up. Medical needs usually meant complications, expenses, and a system that was woefully unprepared to handle children who required more than basic food and shelter. What kind of medical needs? Severe autoimmune deficiency. She needs constant monitoring, specialized medications, and... Janet hesitated. The doctors are recommending an experimental treatment program that could save her life. The problem is insurance won't cover it, and the cost is astronomical. Ren took the file with hands that had learned not to shake no matter how heartbreaking the contents might be. She opened it to find a school photo of a little girl with platinum blonde hair and the most unusual gray eyes she'd ever seen. The child's smile was tentative but genuine, as if she was trying to convince the camera that everything was okay despite the dark circles of exhaustion beneath her eyes. Clover Wildwood, Wren read from the file. Where's the family? Mother died during childbirth complications. No father listed on the birth certificate. The child has been in the system since she was 3, when her grandmother could no longer provide care due to her own health issues. Wren studied the photograph more closely. Something about those gray eyes seemed familiar, though she couldn't place why. What about the father? Has anyone tried to locate him? According to the grandmother's statement before she passed last year, the mother never revealed his identity. Said it was complicated and that he was better off not knowing. That's not good enough. Wren's voice carried the edge it always developed when she encountered adults who had failed children. Every child deserves to know where they come from. And if there's a father out there with the means to help save this little girl's life. Wren. Janet's tone carried a warning. You know how these cases go. We can't force paternity tests on random men based on speculation. But we can investigate. We can ask questions. We can try. Wren was already reaching for her jacket. Where is she placed currently? The Hendersons. Nice family. But they've got 3 other kids, and Clover's medical needs are overwhelming their resources. They're good people, but they're not equipped to handle a child who might die without proper care. Wren finished the sentence with the bluntness that had made her both respected and occasionally feared in the department. I'm going to see her today. The Henderson house was a modest ranch-style home in Beaverton, one of Portland's sprawling suburbs. The yard was cluttered with bikes, sports equipment, and the general debris of a family trying to raise multiple children on a teacher's salary and a plumber's income. When Wren knocked, she could hear chaos from inside, children arguing, a television blaring, and the harried voice of someone trying to manage it all. Mrs. Henderson answered the door looking exactly like what she was, a woman stretched beyond her limits by circumstances beyond her control. You must be Clover's new caseworker, she said, stepping aside to let Wren enter. I'm sorry about the mess. Jimmy had a soccer game this morning. Katie had dance practice, and little Ben decided to finger paint the kitchen while I was helping Clover with her medication. Please don't apologize. You're doing an incredible job under difficult circumstances. Are we? Because it doesn't feel like it. Mrs. Henderson's voice cracked slightly. Clover is such a sweet child, but her medical needs were in over our heads. She had another episode last week, and we had to rush her to the emergency room. The bills are piling up, and our insurance is fighting every procedure. Where is she now? In her room. She spends a lot of time there, reading or drawing. She's incredibly bright, but she doesn't have the energy to keep up with the other kids. Wren followed Mrs. Henderson down a hallway lined with family photos and children's artwork. They stopped at a door decorated with a small wooden sign that read Clover's Room in carefully painted letters. Mrs. Henderson knocked gently. Clover, honey? Your new caseworker is here to meet you. Come in, came a small voice from inside. The room was sparse but clean, with a single bed, a small desk, and shelves lined with books that looked far too advanced for a 7-year-old. Sitting cross-legged on the bed with a sketchpad in her lap was the most beautiful child Wren had ever seen. Clover Wildwood looked like a fairy tale illustration come to life. Her platinum blonde hair fell in gentle waves past her shoulders, and her skin had the translucent quality that often came with serious illness. But it was her eyes that stopped Wren cold. Those gray eyes from the photograph were even more striking in person, intelligent, old beyond their years, and hauntingly familiar. Hello, Clover said politely, setting down her pencil. Are you here to move me again? The matter-of-fact way she asked the question broke Wren's heart. I'm here to meet you and see how you're doing. My name is Wren. Like the bird. Exactly like the bird. Clover smiled for the first time, and it transformed her entire face. I like birds. I draw them sometimes. She held up her sketchpad to show a remarkably detailed drawing of a cardinal perched on a snowy branch. That's incredible. How long have you been drawing? Since I was little. My mama used to be an artist before she died. Mrs. Henderson says I got it from her. Wren sat carefully on the edge of the bed, noting how thin and fragile Clover appeared. What else do you like to do? I read a lot, and I like to learn about science and how things work. Did you know that some birds can migrate thousands of miles using magnetic fields? It's like they have a compass in their heads. I did not know that. You're very smart. Clover's expression grew serious. Mrs. Henderson says I might have to go to a different family because I cost too much money to take care of. The casual way she stated this devastating fact made Wren's throat tighten with emotion. Clover, do you know anything about your father? He doesn't exist. What do you mean? Grandma Rose used to say that some people are too important and busy to be fathers. She said my mama loved him very much, but he had a big important life that didn't have room for us. Wren felt a surge of anger at the unknown man who had abandoned this extraordinary child. What was your mama's name? Sage. Sage Wildwood. She picked my name because she said I was her lucky Clover that would bring good fortune to the world. Tell me about your mama. What do you remember? Clover's eyes grew distant. I don't remember her much because I was little when she died. But Grandma Rose told me stories. She said Mama was the most beautiful artist in Portland, and that she fell in love with a man who was like a prince in a tower made of glass and money. A prince in a tower made of glass and money. The description sparked something in Wren's investigative mind. Did your grandmother ever mention his name? She said his name was like an airplane, fast and powerful and far away. Jet. The thought hit Wren like lightning. Sage Wildwood had been involved with someone whose name sounded like Jet. In Portland, that could mean any number of things, but given the glass tower reference. Clover, I want you to know that I'm going to do everything I can to help you. You're going to stay with the Hendersons for now because they care about you, and I'm going to work on finding better solutions for your medical care. Are you going to try to find my father? The hope in the child's voice was almost unbearable. I'm going to try to find answers. That's what I do. That evening, Wren sat in her small apartment surrounded by case files and her laptop, diving deep into research mode. She started with Sage Wildwood, searching for any information about a Portland artist by that name who had died 7 years ago. What she found made her sit back in her chair with a sharp intake of breath. Sage Wildwood had been a rising star in Portland's art scene. Her obituary described her as a luminous talent taken too soon, and mentioned that she had been working on a series of paintings inspired by a love that changed everything. The obituary was accompanied by a photo of a stunningly beautiful woman with flowing blonde hair and the same gray eyes as her daughter. But it was the details about Sage's life that sent chills down Wren's spine. According to several art blog articles, Sage had been romantically linked to several prominent Portland figures, including tech entrepreneurs and business leaders. One article mentioned her attendance at a charity gala as the guest of an unnamed technology innovator. Wren pulled up a list of Portland's most prominent tech CEOs from 8 years ago. The list was surprisingly short, dominated by a few major players who had built the city's reputation as a tech hub. At the top of the list was Jet Meridian, founder and CEO of Meridian Innovations. Wren stared at the name, then pulled up photos of the billionaire. Jet Meridian was 45 years old, devastatingly handsome in a cold, untouchable way, with dark hair and piercing gray eyes that were an exact match for Clover's. The resemblance was unmistakable. My God, Wren whispered to her empty apartment. He's her father. Over the next 3 days, Wren dove deeper into the connection between Sage Wildwood and Jet Meridian. What she discovered painted a picture of a brief but intense relationship that had ended abruptly 8 years ago. Sage had been featured as Jet's companion at several high-profile events during a 3-month period. Art blogs had speculated about their relationship, describing them as Portland's most beautiful couple, and noting the obvious chemistry between the free-spirited artist and the driven entrepreneur. Then, suddenly, all mentions of them together stopped. Sage had disappeared from the social scene, and Jet had continued his public life with other companions. 6 months later, Clover had been born. The timeline was perfect, but getting to Jet Meridian to present this information was proving impossible. Meridian Innovations occupied a 40-story glass tower in downtown Portland, literally a prince in a tower made of glass, just as Clover's grandmother had described. The building was a fortress of security, corporate lawyers, and administrative layers designed to keep exactly people like Wren away from exactly someone like Jet. Her first attempt was a phone call to his office. Meridian Innovations, how may I direct your call? I need to speak with Mr. Meridian about a personal matter regarding his daughter. I'm sorry, but Mr. Meridian doesn't have any children. If you're calling about a paternity claim, you'll need to direct your inquiry to our legal department. The line went dead. Her second attempt was a formal letter sent through the Oregon Department of Child Services. explaining the situation and requesting a meeting to discuss Clover's medical needs and potential paternity. The response came from Meridian's legal team, a cease and desist letter threatening legal action if she continued to harass Mr. Meridian with false claims designed to extort money from him. Her third attempt was showing up at the building and trying to get past security. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but Mr. Meridian doesn't take unscheduled meetings," the security guard said politely but firmly. "You'll need to go through the proper channels." "I have. The proper channels aren't working. A little girl is dying." "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Ren found herself standing on the sidewalk outside the gleaming tower, looking up at the floors upon floors of glass and steel that separated her from the man who could save Clover's life. Somewhere up there, Jet Meridian was probably sitting in a conference room making decisions about millions of dollars while his daughter lay in a foster home, slowly dying from a disease that money could cure. It was then that she made the decision that would change everything. If Jet Meridian wouldn't see her through proper channels, she would find another way. The next morning, Ren dressed in her most professional outfit and armed herself with a fake press badge she'd ordered online. The plan was simple: pose as a technology journalist, get past security, and somehow find a way to confront Jet face-to-face. The security guard at the front desk barely glanced at her fake credentials. "I'm here for the investor meeting," she said confidently. "I'm running a bit late." 42nd floor. Elevators are to your right. Ren's heart pounded as the elevator climbed toward the top of the building. She had no idea what she was going to say when she got there, but she knew this was her only chance to make Jet Meridian listen to the truth about his daughter. The 42nd floor was all marble and mahogany, designed to intimidate and impress. Through glass walls, she could see into a massive conference room where 20-some people in expensive suits sat around a polished table, listening to someone at the head of the room speak about quarterly projections and market expansion. That someone was Jet Meridian. Ren had seen photos of him, but seeing him in person was different. He commanded the room with an effortless authority that spoke of someone accustomed to being the smartest, most powerful person in any space he occupied. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his charcoal suit probably cost more than most people's cars, and those gray eyes, Clover's eyes, moved across his audience with calculating precision. This was a man who had never heard the word no in any context that mattered. Ren took a deep breath and pushed open the conference room door. 21 faces turned toward her with varying degrees of surprise and annoyance. Jet Meridian's presentation about third-quarter revenue growth stopped mid-sentence. "Excuse me," he said with the kind of controlled politeness that people in power used when they were about to have someone removed. "This is a private meeting. Your daughter is dying, and you're worried about stock prices?" The words came out louder than Ren had intended, carrying across the silent room like an accusation. She could feel the shock of everyone present as they processed what she'd just said. Jet's face went through a series of micro-expressions: surprise, confusion, anger, and something else that might have been recognition. Security. But Ren was already pulling out the photograph of Clover, holding it up so everyone in the room could see the little girl with Jet's unmistakable eyes. "Her name is Clover. She's 7 years old. She has your eyes. And she's going to die because you refuse to acknowledge she exists." 2 security guards appeared in the doorway, moving toward Ren with practiced efficiency. "I don't know who you are or what game you're playing, but this isn't a game." The desperation in Ren's voice was real and raw. "Look at her. Look at your daughter and tell me you don't see yourself." For just a moment, Jet's eyes focused on the photograph. Ren watched his face carefully, looking for any sign of recognition, any crack in his composure. She saw something flicker across his features, a moment of uncertainty, maybe even pain, before his corporate mask slammed back into place. "Get her out of here. Now. She has weeks, maybe days. The treatment costs $300,000, and the insurance won't cover experimental procedures. You spend more than that on your car collection." The security guards reached for her arms, but Ren pulled away, desperate to make this cold, powerful man understand what was at stake. "Sage Wildwood." She screamed the name like a battle cry. "Does that name mean anything to you? The woman you loved 8 years ago? The woman who died giving birth to your child?" The reaction was immediate and devastating. Every trace of color drained from Jet Meridian's face. His hands gripped the edge of the conference table so tightly his knuckles went white. For a moment, the most powerful man in Portland looked like he might collapse. "That's enough," he said, but his voice was barely a whisper. "She kept a journal. She wrote about you, about how much she loved you, about how she wanted to tell you about the baby, but was afraid you'd think she was trying to trap you." I said, "That's enough." The roar echoed through the conference room, silencing everyone present. Jet Meridian stood at the head of the table like a king whose kingdom was crumbling around him. "Ma'am, you need to come with us now." The security guards each took one of Ren's arms, more firmly this time. "Please," she said, her voice breaking as they began to escort her toward the door. "Please just look at the DNA results. Just let us prove what you already know in your heart. Don't let your pride kill an innocent child. If you contact me again, if you come near this building again, if you continue to harass me with these lies, I will have you arrested and prosecuted to the full extent of the law." Jet's voice was deadly quiet now, more terrifying than his earlier shout. "Do I make myself clear?" Ren looked back at him one last time as the security guards pulled her from the room. "She draws birds," she said quietly, "just like her mother did. She's brilliant and beautiful, and she asks questions about everything because she wants to understand how the world works. She looks exactly like you, and she's going to die because you're too scared to admit she exists." The conference room door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like a death sentence. As the security guards escorted her to the elevator, Ren could hear muffled voices from behind the closed door of the conference room. She couldn't make out words, but the tone was urgent, questioning. Jet Meridian was going to have some very difficult questions to answer from his investors. But that was his problem now. Ren had played her only card and lost. The elevator ride down 42 floors gave her time to process what had just happened. She had failed. Not just failed to convince Jet Meridian to help his daughter, but failed spectacularly, in front of witnesses, in a way that would probably end her career and certainly end any chance of getting him to reconsider. "Ma'am," one of the security guards said as they reached the lobby, "I need to inform you that you are now banned from this building. If you attempt to enter again, you will be arrested for trespassing." Ren nodded numbly and walked out into the Portland sunshine that seemed too bright and cheerful for the darkness she was feeling. Her phone was buzzing before she reached her car. Janet Morrison's name appeared on the screen with the inevitability of a bill collector. "Ren, what the hell did you just do?" "I tried to save a little girl's life by storming into a private business meeting and making false accusations against one of the most powerful men in the state." "They're not false accusations, Janet. Jet Meridian is Clover's father. I have enough evidence to prove it, and if he would just agree to a DNA test." He's threatening to sue the department. His lawyers are claiming harassment, stalking, attempted extortion. They want your head on a platter. Ren closed her eyes and leaned against her car. "Then give it to them. But don't give up on Clover. Ren, you're suspended pending a full investigation. Turn in your badge and your caseload. Someone else will handle the Wildwood placement. Janet, please. She's running out of time. So are you. I suggest you get a lawyer." The line went dead, leaving Ren alone in a parking garage with the weight of her failure crushing down on her chest. That evening, she sat in her apartment staring at Clover's file and the photograph of a little girl who deserved so much better than the adults who had failed her. Ren had lost her job, probably ruined her career, and potentially made things even worse for the child she'd been trying to help. But as she studied that photograph, those gray eyes that were so much like her father's, Ren felt her resolve hardening instead of breaking. Jet Meridian thought he could hide behind lawyers and security guards and corporate power. He thought he could ignore his responsibilities and his daughter would just disappear. He was wrong. If the system wouldn't help Clover, if the proper channels were blocked by money and influence, then Ren would find another way. She'd take this fight public. She'd make sure the whole world knew that one of Portland's most successful businessmen was letting his daughter die rather than admit she existed. Ren picked up her laptop and began typing. "My name is Ren Holloway, and I want to tell you about a little girl named Clover." The blog post she published that night would change everything. But first, she had to tell the story of how a brilliant, beautiful child had been abandoned by the system designed to protect her, and how the man who could save her life was choosing pride over responsibility. As she wrote, she could hear Clover's voice asking innocently, Are you going to try to find my father? Yes, Ren whispered to her empty apartment. And I'm going to make him acknowledge what he's done. The war for Clover's life was just beginning. If you're as outraged as I am by Jet's refusal to help his dying daughter, if you believe that every child deserves a chance at life regardless of the circumstances of their birth, smash that like button and let me know in the comments what you would do in Ren's situation. Because this story is about to explode in ways no one saw coming. The post went live at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night. By Friday morning, it had been shared over 1,000 times. By noon on Friday, Ren's blog post had exploded across social media platforms like wildfire. The story of 7-year-old Clover Wildwood and her desperate need for medical treatment had touched a nerve with people across the country. The hashtag Clover's Chance was trending on Twitter, and shares were multiplying exponentially across Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Ren's phone hadn't stopped ringing since 7 a.m. Local news stations, national media outlets, and concerned citizens were all trying to reach her. She'd turned off the ringer and was watching the notifications pile up with a mixture of hope and terror. The blog post had been simple but devastating in its honesty. She'd told Clover's story without naming Jed directly, referring to him only as a prominent Portland businessman who refuses to acknowledge his daughter's existence. But she'd included enough details that anyone with Google could figure out exactly who she was talking about. The public response was swift and furious. This is absolutely heartbreaking. How can any parent ignore a dying child? I've shared this everywhere. This little girl deserves justice. Name and shame. Who is this monster? Someone needs to force a DNA test. This is about a child's life, not his privacy. Within hours, amateur internet detectives had connected the dots. Photos of Jet and Sage from 8 years ago surfaced on social media, alongside current photos of Clover. The resemblance was undeniable, and the timeline was perfect. By 3 p.m., hashtag JetMeridiano's Clover was trending alongside hashtag Clover's Chance. Ren was at the Henderson house, ostensibly to check on Clover despite her suspension, when the first news van pulled up outside. What's happening? Mrs. Henderson asked, peering through the front window at the gathering crowd of reporters and cameramen. I may have started something, Ren admitted. Started what? Before Ren could answer, her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, but when she answered, she heard the crisp, professional voice of someone used to handling crisis communications. Ms. Holloway? This is Rebecca Chun, Director of Public Relations for Meridian Innovations. Mr. Meridian would like to arrange a meeting with you to discuss your recent allegations. Ren's heart rate spiked. He's ready to talk about Clover? He's ready to discuss the false claims you've made about him. Yes. Can you be at our offices at 5 p.m. today? I'm banned from your building, remember? The ban has been temporarily lifted for this meeting. 5th floor conference room. Come alone. The line went dead, leaving Ren staring at her phone with a mixture of excitement and dread. Jet Meridian wanted to see her. After less than 24 hours of public pressure, the man who had refused to even acknowledge Clover's existence was ready to have a conversation. But Ren wasn't naive enough to think this was going to be a friendly chat about family reunification. At exactly 5 p.m., Ren stood outside the 5th floor conference room at Meridian Innovations. Through the glass walls, she could see Jet sitting at the head of a polished table, flanked by what looked like an entire legal team. His expression was harder than stone, and his gray eyes, so much like Clover's, burned with barely controlled fury. When she entered the room, the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Ms. Holloway. Jet's voice was arctic. Please sit down. Ren took the chair at the opposite end of the table, noting how the setup was designed to intimidate her. 6 lawyers, 1 billionaire, and her. The message was clear. You are outnumbered, outgunned, and out of your league. Mr. Meridian, she replied evenly. Thank you for agreeing to see me. I didn't agree to anything. I'm here to inform you that your little social media campaign has crossed the line into criminal behavior. He slid a thick folder across the table toward her. Defamation, harassment, stalking, attempted extortion. My legal team has prepared a comprehensive case against you. Ren opened the folder to find page after page of legal documents threatening everything from civil suits to criminal charges. The language was dense and intimidating, clearly designed to terrify her into submission. All of this goes away, Jet continued, If you immediately and publicly retract your claims, apologize for the false accusations, and agree never to contact me or my company again. And if I don't, then I will destroy you. Professionally, financially, personally. I will make sure you never work in social services again. I will sue you for every penny you have and every penny you might ever earn. I will make your life a living hell until you disappear entirely. The threats were delivered with such calm precision that they were somehow more terrifying than if he'd been shouting. This was a man who had built an empire by crushing anyone who stood in his way, and he was offering Ren a glimpse of exactly what that looked like. "Are you finished?" Ren asked quietly. "Excuse me." With the threats. "Are you finished? Because I'd like to show you something." Before anyone could stop her, Ren pulled out her phone and placed it on the table. The screen showed a photo of Clover from that morning, taken at the Henderson house. The little girl was sitting in bed, pale and exhausted from her latest round of medications, but smiling as she held up a drawing she'd made. "This is what your daughter was doing while you were preparing legal documents to silence the only person fighting for her life." Jet's eyes flicked to the phone screen and immediately away, but not before Ren saw him flinch at the image. "That child is not my daughter. Look at her, Mr. Meridian. Really look at her." Ren zoomed in on Clover's face, focusing on those unmistakable gray eyes. "Tell me you don't see yourself." "I see a sick child whose caseworker is using her condition to try to extort money from a wealthy man. It's despicable, but it's not uncommon." "You're right. It's not uncommon. I've seen dozens of false paternity claims in my career. Desperate people do desperate things when they're facing medical bills they can't pay." Ren's voice grew stronger, more confident. "But this isn't one of those cases, and you know it. I know nothing of the sort." "Then take a DNA test." The simple challenge hung in the air like a thrown gauntlet. Every lawyer in the room shifted uncomfortably, and Jet's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'm not submitting to medical procedures based on the accusations of a disgraced social worker." "Disgraced?" Ren laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to know what's disgraced? Letting a 7-year-old child suffer because you're too proud to admit you made a mistake 8 years ago. I've never made a mistake regarding paternity. I'm careful about such things. Were you careful with Sage Wildwood?" The name hit the room like a bomb. Jet went completely still, his face draining of color. The lawyers exchanged glances, clearly recognizing a name they'd been briefed about, but hoping wouldn't come up. "I don't know anyone by that name," Jet said, but his voice lacked the conviction it had carried moments before. "Really? Because the internet seems to remember differently." Ren pulled up photos on her phone with practiced efficiency. "Here you are at the Portland Art Museum Gala, April 15th, 8 years ago. Your companion for the evening was listed in the society pages as rising artist Sage Wildwood." She slid the phone across the table, showing a photo of Jet in a perfectly tailored tuxedo with his arm around a stunning blonde woman in a flowing green dress. They were looking at each other with obvious attraction, their chemistry palpable even in a static image. Here's another one. The Children's Hospital Charity Auction, May 3rd, same year. Another photo, this one showing Jet and Sage dancing, lost in each other's eyes while the rest of the world seemed to fade away. And here's my personal favorite. The final photo showed them at what appeared to be a more intimate gathering, sitting close together on a restaurant terrace. Sage was laughing at something Jet had said, and he was looking at her with an expression of such tenderness that it was almost painful to see. "You dated her for 3 months, Ren continued relentlessly. "Every society page in Portland covered your relationship. You were seen at restaurants, galleries, cultural events. Sources described you as inseparable and clearly smitten. That was 8 years ago. Ancient history. Ancient history that resulted in a child. Your child. Even if I had known this woman, which I'm not admitting, it doesn't prove anything about paternity. No, but a DNA test would. Why won't you take one?" "Because I don't owe you or anyone else proof of something that isn't true." Ren leaned forward, her amber eyes blazing with determination. "Mr. Meridian, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. If there was even a 1% chance that Clover was your daughter, wouldn't you want to know? Wouldn't you want to help save her life?" For a moment, just a moment, something flickered across Jet's face. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. But then his corporate mask slammed back into place. "This meeting is over. You have 24 hours to comply with our demands, or we proceed with legal action. Fine. Ren stood up, gathering her phone and preparing to leave. But I want you to know something. Clover asked me yesterday if I thought her daddy would love her if he knew she existed. Do you know what I told her? Jet said nothing, but his hands were clenched into fists on the table. I told her that any father would be proud to have such a brilliant, beautiful, brave daughter. I told her that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, but that doesn't mean they don't have good hearts underneath. Ren's voice softened, becoming almost gentle. I still believe that's true. I have to believe it, because the alternative, that a man could know his daughter is dying and choose to do nothing, is too horrible to accept. She was almost to the door when Jet's voice stopped her. How long does she have? Ren turned back, hope flaring in her chest. What? The child. How long does she have without treatment? The doctors estimate weeks, maybe a month. The experimental therapy has a high success rate if administered early, but every day that passes reduces the chances. Jet stared at the photos of Sage still displayed on Ren's phone. What was she like? Sage. I never met her, but from everything I've learned, she was extraordinary. Talented, passionate, full of life. She loved deeply and completely. Ren paused, choosing her words carefully. She loved you enough to protect you from what she thought would be a burden. What do you mean? I found her medical records, Mr. Meridian. Sage was diagnosed with a terminal illness during her pregnancy. She knew she was dying, and she chose not to tell you about the baby because she didn't want you to feel trapped or obligated. The silence in the room was deafening. Jet's face had gone completely white, and his breathing was shallow and rapid. She's dead. She died from complications during childbirth. Her last words, according to the hospital staff, were about how much she loved you and how she hoped you would understand why she couldn't tell you about Clover. One of the lawyers cleared his throat uncomfortably. Mr. Meridian, perhaps we should. Get out. Jet's voice was barely a whisper. All of you, get out now. Sir, I don't think it's advisable to get out. The roar echoed through the conference room, and the legal team quickly gathered their papers and filed out, leaving Ren alone with a man who looked like his entire world had just collapsed. Jet sat in silence for a long moment, staring at the photos of himself with Sage. When he finally spoke, his voice was broken. I looked for her. After she disappeared, I hired investigators. I called everyone we knew together. No one could tell me where she'd gone or why she'd left. She didn't want to be found. I thought. He swallowed hard. I thought she'd found someone else. Someone with more money, more status. It wouldn't have been the first time a woman used me for what I could provide and then moved on to better opportunities. That's not what happened. No, apparently not. Jet looked up at Ren with eyes that held more pain than she'd ever seen. Tell me about her. About Clover. Ren sat back down, this time in the chair next to Jet instead of across the table. She's remarkable, brilliant beyond her years, but with a gentleness that's extraordinary. She reads at a high school level and asks questions about everything from quantum physics to bird migration patterns. She's artistic? Very. She draws constantly, mostly birds and nature scenes. Her style reminds me of her mother's work, but with her own unique perspective. Does she? Jet's voice caught. Does she know about me? She knows her father exists, but not who he is. She's never asked for details, but I think she's always hoped that someday she might meet him. And her medical condition? Severe autoimmune deficiency. Her body attacks its own healthy cells, which makes her incredibly vulnerable to infections and causes constant fatigue and pain. The experimental treatment could essentially reset her immune system, giving her a normal life. How much does it cost? $300,000 for the full treatment protocol, plus ongoing monitoring and medications. Jet was quiet for a long moment, processing everything he'd learned. I want to see her, Mr. Meridian. I want to see my daughter. The words hung in the air between them, the first time Jet had acknowledged Clover's existence. Ren felt tears spring to her eyes at the simple admission. Are you sure? Because if you walk into her life and then disappear again, I'm not going anywhere. Jet's voice was stronger now, filled with a determination that reminded Ren of Clover's quiet strength. I've already missed 7 years of her life. I'm not missing another day. That evening, Ren sat in her car outside the Henderson house, watching Jet Meridian pace nervously on the sidewalk. The most powerful man in Portland looked like he was about to face a firing squad instead of meet his 7-year-old daughter. Are you ready? Ren asked as she approached him. No. How do you prepare for something like this? You don't. You just love her. Mrs. Henderson had been surprisingly gracious about the unusual circumstances. After Ren explained the situation, and after Jet's lawyers had worked out the legal details of the visit, she'd agreed to let the biological father meet his daughter. She's excited, Mrs. Henderson whispered as she led them through the house. I told her that someone very special wanted to meet her, and she's been drawing pictures all afternoon. They stopped outside Clover's bedroom door. Ren could hear soft music playing inside, classical piano that spoke to the child's sophisticated tastes. Clover, sweetheart, your visitors are here. Come in. The door opened to reveal Clover sitting cross-legged on her bed, wearing a white dress with small flowers embroidered on the collar. Her platinum hair was pulled back with a blue ribbon, and her gray eyes, so much like her father's, were bright with curiosity. Hello, she said politely, then recognized Ren. Oh, hi, Ren. Are you feeling better? Mrs. Henderson said you were sick. I'm much better now, thank you. Clover, I'd like you to meet someone very special. This is Mr. Meridian. Jet stepped forward on unsteady legs, his eyes fixed on the little girl who was undeniably his daughter. The resemblance was even more striking in person. She had his bone structure, his intelligent eyes, even the way he tilted his head when he was thinking. Hello, Clover, he managed to say. Hello, Mr. Meridian. That's a nice name. It sounds important. It's nice to meet you. Clover studied him with the directness that children possessed before the world taught them to look away. You have the same eyes as me. The observation hit Jet like a physical blow. Yes, I do. Are you someone I should know? Ren and Jet exchanged glances. They'd discussed how to handle this moment, but now that it was here, all their careful planning seemed inadequate. Clover, Jet said, sitting carefully on the edge of her bed. What would you say if I told you that I'm your father? The little girl considered this with the same seriousness she brought to everything else. I would say that I've been waiting to meet you for my whole life. The simple, honest response broke something open in Jet's chest. Tears he hadn't shed in decades spilled down his face as he looked at this extraordinary child, his child, who had been suffering alone while he built walls around his heart. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry I wasn't here before. It's okay, Clover said with the wisdom of someone far beyond her years. Ren explained that sometimes grown-ups don't know about their children because of complicated reasons. Are you here now? Yes, I'm here now, and I'm never going away again. Good. Do you want to see my drawings? I made some pictures of what I think families might look like. For the next hour, Jet sat on his daughter's bed looking at artwork that revealed a child's deep longing for connection and belonging. Clover had drawn families of birds, families of flowers, families of stars in the night sky. Each drawing showed different beings choosing to be together, to take care of each other, to love each other despite their differences. This one is my favorite, Clover said, holding up a drawing of 3 birds, one large, one medium-sized, and one small, flying together against a sunset sky. The daddy bird, the mama bird, and the baby bird. They're going on an adventure together. It's beautiful, Jet said, his voice thick with emotion. You're incredibly talented. Mama was an artist too. I have some of her paintings in my special box. Want to see? Before Jet could answer, Clover was pulling a wooden box from under her bed. Inside were a few small canvases, paintings that took Jet's breath away with their beauty and familiarity. She painted these while she was pregnant with me, Clover explained. Grandma Rose saved them for me. The paintings were abstract but emotional, swirls of color that seemed to capture joy, love, and hope. But it was the signature in the corner that made Jet's hands shake. SW, for the loves of my life. She was painting about us, he whispered. About you and me. Do you miss her? Every day? I loved your mother very much. Did she love you too? Yes, more than I deserved. Clover nodded solemnly. Grandma Rose said that love doesn't die, even when people do. She said Mama's love for you and for me is still here, like invisible threads connecting our hearts. Your grandmother was very wise. Will you tell me about Mama? About when you knew her? And so Jet found himself sharing memories he'd locked away for 8 years. He told Clover about Sage's laugh, about how she saw art in everything from coffee stains to cloud formations. He described their walks through Portland's art galleries, their debates about beauty and meaning, the way she challenged him to see the world through more generous eyes. "She sounds wonderful," Clover said when he finished. "I wish I could have known her." "You did know her. She's in everything you do, your art, your kindness, your way of seeing beauty in the world." "And what about you? What's in me from you?" Jet smiled through his tears. "Your curiosity, your questions about how things work, your determination to understand everything around you. So I'm made of both of you. Yes, the very best parts of both of us." As the evening progressed, Ren watched father and daughter discover each other with a mixture of joy and heartbreak. This was what Clover had been missing her entire life, not just medical care or financial security, but the love of a parent who saw her truly and completely. But underneath the beauty of their connection was the urgent reality of Clover's condition. She was visibly tired from the excitement, and her cough had worsened throughout the visit. "Mr. Meridian," Mrs. Henderson said quietly, appearing in the doorway. "It's time for Clover's evening medications." "Of course." Jet stood up reluctantly. "I should let you rest. Will you come back tomorrow?" Clover asked, and the hope in her voice was almost unbearable. "Every day? I promise. And will you help me get better? Ren says there's a special treatment that might make me strong again." "I'm going to make sure you get the best medical care in the world," Jet said firmly. "Starting tonight." As they said their goodbyes, Clover gave her father a drawing she'd made during his visit, a picture of a man and a little girl holding hands under a rainbow. "This is us," she explained. "Finally together." Outside the Henderson house, Jet and Ren stood in the gathering darkness, both emotionally drained from the intensity of the evening. "She's incredible," Jet said quietly. "How did Sage create someone so perfect?" "She had help," Ren replied meaningfully. "I don't deserve her." "No, you don't. But she deserves you. She deserves a father who will fight for her, protect her, love her unconditionally. I called my team on the way here. We're flying her to Seattle tomorrow morning. Children's Hospital has the best immunology program on the West Coast. And the experimental treatment? Already approved. Money talks, especially in medicine." Jet's expression was grim. "I spent 8 years building an empire, and tonight I realized it was all meaningless without her." "It wasn't meaningless. It gave you the resources to save her life. Maybe that was the point. Maybe everything I built was so I could be the father she needs now." As Jet drove away that night, Ren felt a complex mixture of emotions. She'd succeeded in reuniting father and daughter, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much more complicated story. The next morning brought chaos. News of Jet Meridian's acknowledgement of his daughter had leaked to the media, and the story exploded across every major outlet. Clover's chance became the #1 trending topic worldwide as people followed the developing story of the billionaire who'd discovered he had a dying daughter. Ren arrived at the Henderson house to find it surrounded by news vans and reporters. She pushed through the crowd to find Jet already inside, coordinating Clover's transport to Seattle with military precision. "The helicopter will be here in 20 minutes, he told Ren without preamble. "I've arranged for a full medical team to accompany us." "Helicopter? Fastest way to get her to the hospital. Every minute counts now." Ren found Clover in her room, dressed in comfortable clothes and clutching a small suitcase. The little girl's eyes were bright with excitement and fear. "Are you scared?" Ren asked, sitting beside her. "A little. But Daddy says the doctors in Seattle are the best in the world, and they're going to make me strong again." "He's right. You're going to be just fine. Are you coming with us?" Ren looked up to find Jet standing in the doorway. They hadn't discussed her role in Clover's ongoing care, but the little girl's question forced the issue. "I think that's up to your father." "I want you there," Jet said without hesitation. "Clover trusts you, and frankly, so do I. You've been her advocate when no one else would fight for her. Even though I ruined your reputation and cost you millions in stock value, you saved my daughter's life. Everything else is just noise." The helicopter ride to Seattle was surreal. Clover pressed her face to the window, marveling at the aerial view of forests and mountains while medical equipment monitored her vital signs. Jet held her hand the entire flight, as if he was afraid she might disappear if he let go. At Children's Hospital, they were met by Dr. Sarah Chun, the head of the immunology department and one of the world's leading experts in autoimmune disorders. "Mr. Meridian, I've reviewed your daughter's files. We can begin the treatment protocol immediately. What are the risks?" Jet asked. The procedure essentially destroys her existing immune system and rebuilds it from scratch. There's always risk with something this intensive, but given her current condition, the benefits far outweigh the potential complications. Success rate: 87%, full recovery. Another 10% show significant improvement. The remaining 3%. Dr. Chen paused diplomatically. Don't improve, Jet finished. The treatment has revolutionized care for children with her condition. I'm very optimistic about Clover's prognosis. Over the next 3 days, Ren watched Jet transform from a distant billionaire into a devoted father. He slept in Clover's hospital room, read her stories, helped her with art projects, and asked the medical team hundreds of detailed questions about every aspect of her care. The experimental treatment was grueling. Clover spent long hours connected to machines that filtered her blood and infused her with carefully calibrated medications. She was often tired and uncomfortable, but she faced each procedure with remarkable courage. Why aren't you scared? Ren asked her during one particularly difficult session. Because Daddy's here, Clover replied simply. And because you promised everything would be okay. I promised no such thing. Yes, you did. When you first came to see me, you said you were going to find answers. You found my daddy, and he's going to make sure I get better. The faith this child had in the adults around her was both humbling and terrifying. Ren found herself praying to whatever forces might be listening that they wouldn't let her down. On the 4th day, Dr. Chen delivered the news they'd all been hoping for. The initial response is excellent. Her new immune system is functioning normally, and we're seeing dramatic improvement in all her markers. Does that mean she's cured? Jet asked. It means she's on track for a full recovery. She'll need monitoring for the next few months, but I expect her to live a completely normal, healthy life. The relief in the room was palpable. Clover clapped her hands in delight. Jet closed his eyes and took the first deep breath he'd taken in days, and Ren felt tears of joy streaming down her face. Can I go to regular school now? Clover asked. And play outside without worrying about getting sick? In a few weeks, you can do anything any other 7-year-old can do, Dr. Chen confirmed. That evening, as Clover slept peacefully for the first time in months, Jet and Ren sat in the hospital cafeteria processing everything that had happened. I owe you an apology, Jet said quietly, and probably my daughter's life. You don't owe me anything. I was just doing my job. No, you went far beyond your job. You risked your career, your reputation, your personal safety to fight for a child who had no one else. She had you. She always had you. You just didn't know it yet. If you hadn't forced me to see the truth, she would have died while I built more wealth I didn't need. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the past week. What happens now? Ren asked. When you take her home to Portland? That's what I wanted to talk to you about. I want you to be part of her life. Permanently. Mr. Meridian. Jet. And I'm serious. You're the closest thing to a mother figure she's ever had. She trusts you. She loves you. And frankly, I have no idea how to raise a 7-year-old girl. You're doing fine. You're a natural father. I'm a natural businessman who's terrified of messing up the most important thing in my life. Jet's expression was vulnerable, almost desperate. I want to hire you as her nanny, her guardian, her advocate, whatever title makes you comfortable. I want you to help me give her the life she deserves. Ren considered the offer carefully. What about my career? I love social work. Then keep doing it. I'll fund a foundation, the Sage Wildwood Foundation for Children's Advocacy. You can help kids on a scale you never imagined possible. And romantically? What happens between us? The question hung in the air between them. Over the past week, Ren had become increasingly aware of the attraction growing between them. Jet was nothing like the cold, arrogant man she'd first encountered in that boardroom. He was thoughtful, devoted, and surprisingly vulnerable when it came to his daughter. I don't know, Jet admitted. I know I care about you. I know I respect you more than anyone I've ever met. I know that when I imagine Clover's future, you're in every picture. But I destroyed one relationship through selfishness and pride. I don't want to risk hurting you or confusing Clover if I'm not capable of being the man you both deserve. Ren reached across the table and took his hand. Jet, you made mistakes when you were younger, but the man who slept in a hospital chair for 4 nights, who learned every detail of his daughter's medical condition, who's planning to restructure his entire life around her needs. That man is exactly who we need. Are you sure? I'm sure that Clover needs both of us. And I'm sure that we owe it to ourselves and to her to find out what we could be together. 6 months later, Ren stood in the backyard of Jet's Portland home, now their home, watching Clover chase butterflies through the garden they'd planted together. The little girl was radiant with health, her energy seemingly boundless after months of being constrained by illness. "Daddy, Ren, come see what I found." Clover was kneeling beside a rose bush, examining something with intense concentration. When they reached her, she pointed to a small bird's nest tucked among the branches. "Baby birds," she whispered reverently, "just like in my drawings." "They're beautiful," Ren said, watching the tiny creatures with wonder. "Can we take care of them? Make sure they're safe." "We can watch over them," Jet said, "but their mama bird will take care of them. That's what mamas do." Clover looked up at him with those wise gray eyes. "Do you think my mama bird is watching over us too?" "I know she is," Jet replied, his voice thick with emotion. "And I think she's very happy that we found each other." That evening, after Clover was asleep, Jet and Ren sat on their back porch watching the stars appear over Portland. The engagement ring on Ren's finger caught the light from the house, a simple but elegant design that incorporated a small piece of Sage's artwork in the setting. "Any regrets?" Jet asked, echoing a question that had become their tradition. "Only one," Ren replied, settling into his arms. "What's that?" "That it took a medical crisis to bring us all together. I wish Clover hadn't had to suffer for us to find each other. Maybe the suffering was necessary. Maybe it taught us all what really matters. Maybe. But from now on, I vote for happiness and health and normal 7-year-old problems." "Like what?" "Like whether to sign her up for soccer or art classes. Like how to explain why she can't have ice cream for breakfast. Like teaching her to ride a bike without training wheels." Jet laughed, the sound warm and content. "I can handle those problems. We can handle them. Together." As they sat in the peaceful darkness, surrounded by the life they'd built from pain and second chances, Ren reflected on how dramatically everything had changed. A year ago, she'd been a single social worker fighting a system that seemed designed to fail children. Now she was part of a family, running a foundation that had already helped dozens of kids get the medical care they needed. Clover was thriving, not just physically, but emotionally. She was enrolled in a gifted program at one of Portland's best schools, taking art classes, making friends, and living the normal childhood she'd always deserved. The experimental treatment had been completely successful, and her doctors expected her to live a full, healthy life. But perhaps most importantly, she was loved. Completely, unconditionally, fiercely loved by 2 adults who would move mountains to protect her happiness. "Do you think she knows?" Ren asked quietly. "How much we love her?" "I think she's always known. I think that's what kept her strong during all those years when she was alone. She was never really alone. She had her mother's love, even if Sage couldn't be there physically. And now she has ours." In the distance, a night bird called to its mate, and they heard an answering call from across the garden. The sound made them both think of Clover's drawings, of families choosing to be together despite obstacles and challenges. "I love you," Jet said, the words still feeling new and precious after months of saying them. "I love you too. All of you. This whole strange, wonderful family we've become." Strange. The billionaire, the social worker, and the little girl who brought them together. If someone had told me this story a year ago, I never would have believed it. The best stories are the ones that seem impossible until they happen. As if summoned by their conversation, a small voice called from upstairs. "Daddy? Ren? I had a dream about Mama." They found Clover sitting up in bed, her hair tousled and her eyes bright with the remnants of sleep. "What kind of dream, sweetheart?" Ren asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. "A happy dream." She was painting, and the painting was of all of us together, you, me, and Daddy. And she was smiling because she knew we were a family. "That sounds like a beautiful dream," Jet said, settling on the other side of the bed. It didn't feel like a dream. It felt like she was really there, telling me she's proud of us for finding each other. Ren and Jet exchanged glances over their daughter's head, both feeling the weight of love and loss and hope that defined their unconventional family. "I think she is proud," Ren said softly. "I think she's been watching over you your whole life, and now she gets to watch over all of us. Will you tell me more stories about her tomorrow?" Every day, Jet promised. For as long as you want to hear them. Good. I want to know everything about her, so I can tell my own children someday. Your own children? Ren laughed. You're 7 years old. I know. But someday I'll be a mama, and I want to be as good as you and my first mama were. The simple statement filled both adults with overwhelming emotion. This child, who had suffered so much in her short life, was already thinking about how to pass on love to the next generation. You'll be an amazing mother, Jet said, his voice rough with tears. You'll be amazing at everything you choose to do. Will you help me? Both of you, even when I'm grown up. Forever and always, Ren promised. That's what families do. Clover smiled and settled back into her pillows, already drifting toward sleep. I love our family. We love our family too, Jet whispered. As they tucked her in and returned to their own room, Ren felt a deep sense of completion. They'd all traveled such difficult paths to reach this moment. Jet through loss and guilt, Ren through professional and personal challenges, and Clover through illness and abandonment. But somehow, impossibly, they'd found each other. They'd chosen to become a family not through blood or convenience, but through love and determination and the unwavering belief that every child deserves to be cherished. The Sage Wildwood Foundation had grown beyond anything Ren had imagined possible. They'd helped over 200 children access life-saving medical treatments, and their work was expanding nationally. Jet had restructured his entire business model around social responsibility, proving that profit and compassion weren't mutually exclusive. But their greatest success wasn't measured in dollars or children helped or business innovations. It was measured in the sound of Clover's laughter echoing through their home, in the way she ran to greet them both each evening, in the security and joy that radiated from a child who knew without question that she was loved. Thank you, Jet said as they prepared for bed. For what? For refusing to give up. For fighting when I wouldn't fight. For seeing what I was too scared to see. Thank you for becoming the man your daughter needed you to be. Thank you for becoming the woman we both needed you to be. As they fell asleep in each other's arms, both Ren and Jet carried the same thought. Sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones that form against all odds, built not on convention but on choice, not on obligation but on love. And sometimes, just sometimes, the children we fight for end up saving us just as much as we save them. In a world that often prioritizes profit over people, success over compassion, individual achievement over collective care, their story stood as proof that love, real, sacrificial, transformative love, could still change everything. If this story has moved you, if you believe in fighting for those who can't fight for themselves, if you know that every child deserves a chance at life and love, please subscribe to Lux Love Chronicles with Mr. Wentworth. Hit that notification bell and share this story with someone who needs to hear that miracles can happen when ordinary people refuse to accept extraordinary injustice. Because somewhere tonight, there's another Clover waiting for someone brave enough to fight for her. Somewhere there's another Jet who needs to be reminded what really matters. And somewhere there's another Ren who's about to discover that the greatest love stories aren't about finding your soulmate. They're about choosing to become a family with the people who need you most. Love doesn't always look like what we expect. Sometimes it looks like a social worker storming into a boardroom. Sometimes it looks like a billionaire sleeping in a hospital chair. Sometimes it looks like a little girl teaching adults how to see magic in everyday moments. But it always looks like showing up. Even when it's hard. Even when it's scary. Even when the odds are impossible. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey. Until next time, remember that every child is someone's everything, and every act of courage in defense of the innocent has the power to change the world. This is Mr. Wentworth, reminding you that the most powerful force in the universe isn't money or fame or success. It's love that refuses to give up.